Hey, it's Ted McGrath. Welcome to today's call. So I'm going to talk to you about how to create offers that sell. So if you're a service business, a coach, a consultant, an expert, and you're looking how to create offers online that sell, or offers from the stage that sell, or offers one-on-one that sell, I'm going to share with you exactly how to create offers. I've been creating offers online for the last 12 years. I've been doing offers from stages for the last 20 years. So I know how to make a pitch from the stage, and I know how to make a pitch online. So whether you're doing online videos to sell stuff, whether you're doing webinar presentations, whether you're doing stage presentations, whether you're doing on other people's stages selling stuff, or whether you're just doing a one-on-one presentation and you want to know how to pitch and make the offer, I'm going to tell you exactly how to do this. Okay, John, what's up, my man? So I've been doing this for years. It's those for those of you who follow me on the crypto side or the digital money side. I have another aspect of my business that's digital marketing, as well as speaking and teaching speakers how to speak on stage, podcasts, online, etc., as well as teaching people sales. So we're going to jump in right now. If you have any questions, you can post them in the chat, and I'm going to share with you exactly how to make an offer and to make the ultimate pitch. Okay. A little background on this, like I've done this from stages. And so when you're doing this from stages, there's two key things. When you're doing a presentation is to tell stories in your pitch, and also to make the call to action, meaning the closing offer multiple times to get the actual sale. Okay. So what that means is when I make a pitch from the stage, I used to have my peers who would fly around from different parts of the country to watch how I would do this with my audience. And I was known for making like the $200,000 sale from the stage, and people jump up out of their chair and they take the envelopes, and it was entertainment. It was a production. It was fun. And it was always like overtly telling them, hey, I'm going to sell you something right now. Okay. And I did it through storytelling, and I did it through closing and making the offer multiple times. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make in a presentation, whether you're doing it one-on-one to make the pitch or online or from stages, is the number one mistake is people make one call to action. Okay. Meaning they get through this great presentation on their offer and they're like, hey, are you ready to do this thing? And what happens is, like the person just like, no. Or if you're making the presentation online, hey, go click on the link. Or if you're in a seminar room and you're like, hey, go to the back of the room, or hey, sign up now. And you give one call to action, the first call to action, people literally look, they're like, are you talking to me? First call to action. Like they're not getting the communication yet. So when you're on a stage and you make your first call to action, you're like, great, so sign up now or go to the back of the room. The people look, they turn around, they're like, are you talking to me? You talking to me? You talking to the person behind me? You talking to my father? Like, who are you talking to? Because they don't receive the communication initially with the first offer fully. So the great mistake, I remember I was at an event, I was watching a friend pitch from the stage. I had just gone up and crushed it on the stage, closed a large percentage of the room. And one of my peers got off the stage and they're like, why didn't people buy? I was like, my presentation must have been terrible. I'm like, no, your presentation was amazing. Your content was amazing. I was so interested in it. Like, well, why did nobody buy? I said, because nobody bought because you made one call to action. Like one. So the first call to action, nobody knows you're really talking to them. And even the people who do like the quick starts, like the small percentage of the audience who's there and they want to buy something, they know they're interested, they need a little bit more than one call to action. I'm like, so the only thing you did wrong in your presentation, I said, the only thing you did wrong was you made one call to action. You need to make it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times throughout the presentation to get somebody to make a buying decision. Okay. So that was one of the key components. And anybody I've coached after that, I've helped them make that distinction of like one call to action does not work. All right. Second thing is, when you're doing a pitch, there's different stories that one would tell. All right. So when I'm doing a pitch, one, if it's a condensed presentation that's 60 minutes or 90 minutes, like a webinar or stage presentation, which is a long presentation, but comparatively, if I do a 2 or 3 day seminar, it's short. All right. So in like a condensed presentation, whether it's 60 minutes, 45 minutes, 90 minutes, I'm making sure that I'm putting in that presentation a couple key stories. Number one is my personal story. So if people don't know who I am, I got to tell them my personal story, because if I tell them my personal story, they're going to connect with my journey of going through my journey, my pit moment where I was down and out, and then searching for the answers and then breaking through to get a result. So number one, I always will share a story if I'm selling something to my audience so they know who I am and they know my journey. But number two, my story is not enough because sometimes it's not real to people, right? So if I have a business that's only sold, a couple mil as a result of online marketing, or 6 figures as a result of online marketing, or zero, and I've sold approximately 50 million as a result of online marketing, it's going to be very unreal to people if I tell them my story and they see my results. They're like, dude, I haven't even done 6 figures. Like, that's not real to me. So I tell them my story to take them on a journey to connect with some of the audience so they know who I am. But then I have stories of clients who are in similar positions that I tell so that people can identify with that particular customer who might be in the same spot of them. So number one, you always have a personal story when you're making a pitch. Number two, you always have multiple client stories when you're making a pitch, at least 3, and ideally 5 client testimonials when you're doing a pitch. Now, in the realm of 5 client success stories, you might go in depth into 1 or 2 of the client success stories, and the other 3 or 4, you might just kind of glance over their results. All right. So in the pitch, I always go deep into a couple of the client success stories to take people through the journey till they're getting the storytelling of it. Okay. A story during a pitch is not this. So when I was 21, all of a sudden I broke 6 figures, and then I went on to be a speaker. And then when I started my seminar business, I made 6 figures. And then, I went on from there, and I built a multi-million-dollar seminar business. And then I went online, and I realized that I could reach a lot of people, and eventually reached 50 million people. And I've gotten close to about 50 million in sales as a result in the last several years. And that's my story. That's not a story. That's called event telling of like, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. A story, there's an art to it. There's a way to tell a story to get somebody in present time interested. If you event tell in a presentation about your story of your life or your client, and you just say, this happened and this happened and this happened, that's no different than a presentation. And content in a presentation, when you're pitching in particular, will not hold the attention of the audience for 60 minutes. So you have to drop stories in there so that they get into the story in present time as if the story is taking place now. Make sense? I remember when I was at one of my seminars, and one of my clients, David, had stood up in the room. I made the offer, and at this time I was offering something for like 100K. And one of my clients, David, he stood up, and he wasn't a client yet, but he grabbed the envelope. And then he had requested a meeting with me. And I was like, well, normally like somebody meets with my team to go talk about these offers, but I'm happy to sit down with you and meet with you. You were a guest of somebody else who's a client, and I'm happy to meet with you to introduce myself. So I sat down with him and his wife, and we're sitting at the table. And I said, so what inspired you to grab the envelope? And he's like, well, we want to do this. Like, we want to work with you. We know we want to do this. And my wife and I, we both want to do this. And I said, great. So let's get the game started. And why don't you write the check or give us a credit card? And let's get going. And he's like, oh, we don't have the money. And I'm like, okay, but what inspired, like, this is not like a 2K offer. Like, what inspired you to stand up for $100,000 offer? And he's like, we know we need to do this. Like, deep down inside, we've been sitting here for 2 days listening to you. We know we need to do this. We're called to do this. We don't want to go to our grave without living our purpose and doing this thing. And I said, okay, so let's talk through how this could happen. So I said, like, do you have like in your checking and savings account, what do you got? And he's like, well, nothing. I got like a few $1,000. I'm like, great. Okay. So like any investments, like a 401k, stocks, mutual funds, like anything. He's like, no, I haven't saved anything. I said, great, but you're making a couple $100,000 a year. Yeah, I spend it all. Great. Any credit cards at all? Like, how many credit cards do you have? I don't have credit cards. I ruined my credit a while ago. I don't have credit cards. I'm like, okay. So like no credit cards, no stocks, no mutual funds, no 401ks, no checkings accounts, no savings accounts, like any like emergency fund or whatever, like anything there. Like, no. I'm like, any like rainy day fund, like money that you have anywhere that you're not thinking about right now, that's like somewhere sitting there in your universe that you don't put your attention on a daily basis, but maybe there's a rainy day fund stashed away somewhere. He goes, I have $100,000 my mom left me, and she just passed away, and so it's a rainy day fund. And I look at him and I smile and I go, well, looks like it's raining a little bit. Maybe it's time to bring the sunshine out. And he goes, I could do that. And he goes and he makes the investment. And so he starts to work with me. And then I go, great. So now you're going to do your first thing in the next 120 days. You're going to do your first seminar. And I'm listening to his brand at the time. And he's telling me about his brand. And I'm like, so what do you do? Right? I know you're a chiropractor, but what do you do? And he goes, well, I do ba-ba, 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 ba-ba. And I'm like, all of a sudden, it's like UFOs are like flying around over his head and mine. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. Like, no idea what you're talking about. I said, the first key, like if you're going to pitch anything or sell anything, David, that's my client's name at the time. And I said, the first thing that you need to do to pitch anything, David, is you need to get clear on what the message is. And so right now, as you tell me what you do, it's like UFOs are flying around over my head. I have no concept of what you're talking about. So what do you do? I do chiropractic. Great. Who do you work with? I work with these people. I'm like, we're going to change the audience. If you want to make real money in this business, you need to work with able people. We need to start targeting people who have some money. We need to get you in the game and get you winning on this. We're going to change it to an audience that's making 6 figures a year. Great. Who do you want to work with? He's like, I've always really wanted to work with men and really help men bring out their ba 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 ba. And I said, great. So you're going to work with men who are making multi 6 figures a year. I go, great. So when somebody gets worked on and gets on your table as a chiropractor, I said, like, what happens to them? Let's say I'm an entrepreneur. What happens to me when I get off the table? I go, better yet, I'm going to get worked on right now with you. You're a chiropractor. We're coming right now. I'm going to see the experience as a speaker, as an entrepreneur, what it's going to be like for me. I get on the table. I get off. I go, I got your brand. He's like, what? I got your brand. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, your brand, like where you're telling me what you do, and it's so complex and you use industry jargon and nobody gets it. You want to work with men. You want to work with successful men. I got off this table. I felt more energized. I feel like I can be more productive. I felt more ready to get into action. I said, I felt like I'm on fire. Your brand is going to be called Man on Fire. Great. You're going to go do your first seminar. He did his first seminar 120 days later, or within 90 days. He does his first seminar. I teach him how to do a pitch. He gets up on stage and he does $141,000 in sales at his first seminar with only 20 people in the room. I tell you that story because, one, I'm telling you a story and I'm demonstrating the power of storytelling. Okay. The power of storytelling is real. 2, when I taught him how to go do a pitch from the stage, I taught him the exact same things. I said, David, when you get up on a stage, you've never pitched before. Whether you do it on a webinar, a video, it doesn't matter. It's the same deal. The pitch is the pitch is the pitch. And there's fundamental rules that you never violate in doing a pitch. He's like, what are they? I said, you need to get stories to tell, David. You need a story about your life and you need stories about clients, and we need to make them interesting. And we'll hit the fundamental things rather than telling customers, hey, this is what you need to do. Hey, I want to overcome your objections right now. What are you thinking about? You're thinking about this. You're thinking about that. And like whatever you're thinking about, like we're not going to get into that right now in the room. Like we're going to tell them a story to overcome the thing that they're thinking about. Make sense? And I said, so rather than telling them like, hey, oh, you're probably thinking about this right now and thinking about that. That is effective in a presentation. Like, hey, if you're thinking about this, you can handle the objections, but there's no more powerful way to handle the objection that somebody would have listening to a presentation than to tell them a story about somebody who had the same objection and somebody overcame it. Because if I tell you about the objection that you're having and I start handling your considerations by telling you versus telling you a story that handles the same considerations, the story is way more real because the person listening to the story sees themselves in the story as if they're the person that's handling the objection and going through it and getting the results. And that's what makes the storytelling so damn powerful. Okay? So I then taught him, like, great. So who was a client that had to think about something? He says, this client. I said, how'd you handle it? Blah, blah, let's craft a story. I said, great. Like, let's tell me about your personal story of when you got into chiropractic and when you started and what it did for you and how it changed your life. Great. We're going to create that story. Tell me about another client who had a money objection in signing up for your services. And we're going to create that story. And all along the way, we started to create money objection stories. We started to create his personal story. I said, tell me a story of loss that somebody was just totally down and out. One of your customers who never thought they could do it, that totally pulled it off and they overcame it and they were an underdog and they made it happen. And at the end of doing that, I said, my friend, I said, when you learn how to tell stories from the stage and when you entertain people with storytelling, I said, you will overcome more objections than you ever thought you possibly imagined overcoming, because that's the power of story. So the power of the pitch is the power of the storytelling in the pitch. And the greatest thing that I do in a pitch when I'm in a room, I love seminar rooms. It's my favorite thing to do. April 11th, 12th, and 13th, I'm doing a seminar for anybody who wants to speak from stages, videos, webinars, online presentations, virtual seminars, what have you. I'm doing one. So if you want to come, you can put it in the chat. We don't have any links or anything here yet. I'm just putting that out there. Okay. So we're teaching people how to do this. And I said, one of the greatest things that you can do, I said, is you got to get the stories right. And once you get the stories right, okay, once you get the stories right, then you have the premise and the basis for a powerful, powerful presentation to pitch something to help somebody get results. So story is a key component. And you know what the cool thing is? The moment you tell a story, like when you're doing a pitch, I tell that story, the David story that I just gave you, I tell that story when I'm making a pitch. And then the people in the room who are having money objections, when I went through that story, notice how I took you through the entire story of how I handled David's money considerations and asked every question about his money, his checkings, his savings, his investments. So as I'm telling the story, every client in the seminar room is thinking about their checking account, their savings accounts, their credit cards. This, I don't have to have a direct conversation with about it. I'd literally tell them a story about a client that I took through it, and they're going through the same exact process, and I'm handling 200, 300, 400 people in a room on their money considerations through a story. Make sense? So the story becomes fun. And then at the end of that, I go, so if some of you are like David, and you're in a position right now where you think it's just not possible and you don't have the resources and you can't make it happen, I want you to stand up right now. I want you to grab this envelope and I want you to stand for your transformation right now and stand for the opportunity that you have for your future, just like David did, and grab an envelope and step in and let's have a conversation with our team about you doing this. And boom, that's the next call to action. And then I get in and I tell another story about somebody who was thinking about it. Somebody's been thinking about it for the last 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and they made no progress and they're stuck in the pit and it's not working. And I go through this entire conversation through a story. And then the people who are thinking about it, who are like procrastinating, have been sitting on this for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years, all of a sudden they get into action. So there's no greater power than through storytelling. Through storytelling that can get objections overcome for somebody to get into action. And the greatest thing about pitching something is that you're pitching somebody on the outcomes and the goals that they have for their life as it relates to your product. You're not selling the product, even though that is the thing they buy. The thing you're selling the most in a presentation is the future, the outcome, the goal. One of my coaches, I was 22 when I was in this group. His name's Dan Sullivan. He's one of the top coaches in the industry. And Dan sat with me at 22 years old. I got into this group that Dan was in. He was coaching producers. I was a 6-figure producer at 22 years old. Dan was working with 7- and 8-figure producers. And they put me in a room with 7- and 8-figure producers. And I looked at Dan and he looked at me and he says, Ted, I said, what? He goes, do you want to know why I have a job? And I said, no. Like I said, why? Like, I want to know because I don't know. Like, why do you have a job every day? He says, see all these successful people? And I said, yeah. He says they come from all different backgrounds, races, religions, families. Like they're all completely different. But the one thing they all have in common, and these are successful people, is they're all not sold on their own bigger future yet. And my job is to sell them on their own bigger future every single day. And I was just like, whoa, this is huge. And so I never forgot that because I now related that to every time I sell a product or I pitch something, I think about what's the outcome? What's the bigger future? What does the customer want? Let me sell them on the bigger future and link their bigger future to the actual product, because the reality is, and this is a key component in selling, this is the number one component, is the client will never know all about your product. Never. Never. And so they've listened to your pitch on your product for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You have 20, 30, 40 years, 10 years, 5 years knowledge on your own product, depending on how long you've been doing your career. Your client has 15 minutes. Do you think they're going to understand your product better, or do you think they're going to understand their goals? They're going to understand their own goals. So you get them clarity on their goals, you get them clarity on the outcomes you want and that they want, and then you link their goals and their outcomes to your product, which they know nothing about. They just need to get the concept of what your product does, and they've had the basic concept linked with their future and their goal. Boom, you marry the two together, and that's how you close people. That's what you do. Make sense? So that's the game of closing the deal. All right. And it's entirely about that. In fact, I wrote a best-selling book called Never Be Closing. And the irony of it is it's all about closing, but it's not closing on the product. It's closing on the outcome and the goal of the customer first and linking that to the product. Okay. That's the game. And so in presentations, to do a recap here, and you can take notes and apply this to your one-on-one presentations where you pitch, to your in-person presentations where you pitch, to your stage presentation, your video presentation. This is the basic formula. And I'll break down the structure in another call in the future, or another Zoom call in the future. But the basic thing is, one, throughout a presentation, to close something and to help a client get into their bigger future, you need to, number one, have good stories. You need to have a personal story. You need to have money stories. You need to have stories that overcome the client's objections. You need to have a couple good stories like that. Okay, that's number one. All right. Number two, you need to, when you're making the pitch, you tell a story, and then you relate that pitch moment to, like, hey, just like David was thinking about this because he didn't think he had the money. For all of you in the room right now where money is a consideration, if David could do it, you could do it. So if you're inspired right now after hearing this, where you can find the money, get resourceful, stand up, grab the envelope, or click on the link and go enroll right now. And then second, like whatever next story that I tell another story about, like, my client Brandon or my client Alex who had a stutter. And I talk about Alex who had a stutter, and Alex who never thought he would get up on stage, never thought he would present. Alex has gone on to build a multi-million-dollar seminar business. Because at 24 years old, I inspired him to get up on stage and tell his story and confront his stutter. And today, his main business is leading seminars. So I tell that story, for the underdog story. So for those of you who think you can't do it, you can't overcome your obstacles, you can't overcome your personal problems, Alex did it at 24. What do you think is possible for you? And then I make another call to action. So every fundamental thing that I'm doing is making call to actions related to persons, people, stories of people that actually overcame the challenge. And the key to a pitch is never, ever, ever, ever make one call to action, meaning, hey, would you like to do this? And somebody says no, or they don't stand up, or they don't click the button, and you think you got off the call or off the presentation or off the stage, and you think you failed in your presentation. No, you failed in your close, because a proper close just keeps going and keeps going until the majority of the audience is standing up or clicking on the button to buy. And I can tell you, in doing this in a seminar that I just did recently, where 65 to 70% of the room was standing up for a 5-figure offer that was over $10,000. And 65 to 70% of the room was just popping up like popcorn to grab envelopes to have the conversation, because fundamentally I know exactly how to move people towards their bigger future. Storytelling, multiple calls to action in the offer. And when you do it, it's magic. And the final thing is, people are entertained. And there's this final story that I tell at the end of the pitch, because in the beginning of the pitch, the one thing I always do is I say, I'm going to sell you today. I'm going to sell you on your bigger future. I tell them that. I let them know what's coming, because people don't want to sit there and be surprised. I'm like, I'm telling you what I'm doing. I'm going to stand for you and your future today. I'm going to help you just like I would want somebody to do for me. So in today's presentation, I'm going to make an offer. And they know. And they like it. And they appreciate it, because there's no like, is he going to make an offer? I tell them. And then throughout the rest of the presentation, they're relaxed because they know it's coming. They know it's coming. It's the things that are left unsaid that make people nervous. If you just say it, it's out on the table. There's nothing to be nervous anymore. They just need to handle it now. It's like, okay, he's going to make a pitch. I know it's coming. I tell him at the beginning of the presentation. Then I go through, and then I make it fun and it's entertaining. At the end of my final thing, when I'm in a seminar and I do a pitch, I tell a personal story about my grandparents. It's one of the most powerful personal stories of my entire life. And I tell them. And everybody thinks that the whole deal's over, the show's over, the pitch is over, and I just drop them into a personal story. And then after the personal story, I make a final call to action for anybody who's going down the path, who thinks that I'm going to be on the path to a good life. Because my grandparents had that in their room. They used to say it's a good life. And my grandfather used to say it all the time. And I said, I believe that the prior generations that came before us, I believe that they lived a life and they helped us and they served us with the basic idea that they wanted the next generation to do better. So if you're going down the path right now where your path is to a good life, couldn't it be extraordinary? And if you want it to be extraordinary, stand up, grab an envelope, or click on the link, or sign the paper. Let's make it extraordinary and let's work together on this. Okay? And that is the idea of how I pitch. And it's I've been doing it from stages like for years. Since the time I was 22 that I passed out on stage, broke into sweats, sat in the front row with the audience, was mortified, thought I would never speak again, to now 20 years later, loving speaking more than I even loved it 10 years ago. And so much so that I've turned my own life story into a one-man play where I get up on stage and I play 12 different characters from my life, and I impersonate my tennis coach, and I impersonate my boss, and I impersonate my Italian friend, and I impersonate my other friends, and I do all these different impersonations on stage, and I tell a story and I entertain people for 65 minutes. And it's amazing. And so the great joy and love that I have in life is sharing stories that will communicate a message that helps improve somebody's life. There's nothing that's more fun and more fulfilling to give somebody a hope, a chance, and inspiration of a message that will get them into action on the things that they want. So that's how I pitch. I hope this serves you guys. I know sometimes people are showing up here and they're expecting me to do like something on crypto or Bitcoin or MicroStrategy. I do other things that are related to other things of business, and that's how I roll with different lives. So I hope you enjoy this. If you want more of this, tell me what you want. But I have so much I can share with you in presentations. I have so much that I can share with you in storytelling. I have so much I can share with you in stages. I have so much I can share with you in closing. I have so much I can share with you in online businesses. I mean, the amount of money that I made building online businesses, and just marketing and advertising and promotion, and building sales teams. Like, I have a breadth of knowledge in that on top of my knowledge in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and MicroStrategy and stocks that I love. All right, hope it serves you. See you on the flip side. If you like this, put a comment in of what you want more of. Share it with a friend, and hope it serves you. See you on the flip side.